This is Austin Liti Limits, where authors talk to authors about books and the craft of storytelling. Sponsored by Blue Ink Review, because typing the end is just the beginning. Find out more at blueinkreview.com. Cobb is the author of twisty, sultry suspense. She grew up in the piney woods of East Texas, moved to the West Coast for graduate studies where she got her master's degree before returning to Austin. May has published 2 previous novels, Big Woods and The Hunting Wives, and just released her 3rd, My Summer Darlings. She talked with our Scott Semigran.
Welcome to the show, May Cobb.
Thanks so much for having me, Scott. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Sure, this is super fun. So I just finished your novel yesterday, which comes out in paperback. Can you tell us what date it comes out in paperback?
Yeah, Tuesday, April 25th. So about 6-7 weeks.
Excellent. So this novel is about 3 suburban women. They're friends. They become obsessed with this man who moves into their neighborhood. Can you describe kind of like that initial nugget of inspiration for you for this book?
Yeah, and I would put friends in quotes. Yeah, actually it was the film The Witches of Eastwick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Good movie.
Yeah, so I watched that a lot growing up because I don't know how old you are, but I'm almost 50 and we didn't have a lot of content back then. It was like, so I feel like in my generation, we would watch the same movie over and over. Anyway, I loved the setup of that, of the 3 best friends, and then this mysterious stranger moving in and upending their lives. And I wanted to sort of riff off that and set it in East Texas, of course, because evidently that's what I have to write about. And yeah, and then I always love writing about like twisty female friendships and obsession and murder, of course. So that was kind of the original inspiration.
Right. Yeah, I'm 51. I saw The Witches of Eastwick when it came out. I saw it in the theater with my parents. And that movie is so great. And I remember thinking, because I was probably 15 or 16 when it came out, I remember thinking, I love Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
But there's something about him initially when you look at him, he's not an attractive person physically, but he has so much charisma that after a while you're like, oh, I can see why they're falling for this guy.
Yes.
Besides the fact that he puts a spell on them, but he has so much charisma that's like, oh yeah, I can see why.
Yeah.
And I can see how that could be an interesting nugget for this particular story, although Will is described as being very handsome. Yeah. In fact, even all the teenage girls start to swoon over him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you're talking about, you say friendship in quotes. They have been friends since they were, in their teens.
Yeah.
So can you describe how the Fishers and their friendship kind of come, how Will kind of weasels his way into their friendship, because they do protect each other. They're very cognizant of each other's feelings.
Yeah, they are. I do think they're genuinely good friends. I really do. And then, their friendship gets tested upon his arrival. And I love this question because it really is about Will weaseling his way in. Yeah, I feel like all good psychopaths, he's very good at reading people and the situation and manipulating it, bending it to his will, if you can forgive my terrible pun. And I feel like for them, the weakness is probably like Kitty always having to be the alpha female, the center of attention, the aging socialite who feels like her beauty's faded, even though it hasn't, who's jealous of her teenage daughter's looks. So I feel like, that sort of flashback scene where Kitty kind of takes Jen's crush in high school off into the woods, and it's sort of that all over again. Even though Jen's the one that's divorced and single mom and struggling financially and emotionally. Kitty can't help herself. She needs Will's, approval and attraction to her. And then Cynthia is, just so bored in her marriage that this is like the answer to her prayers that she didn't even know she was praying about.
Right. Yeah, and one of the things that I found interesting is that Will was so good at making each of them feel special and then wanted, right? And so
Yeah.
why do you think it is that that's something that can really weasel its way into their heart? What is it about that kind of quality?
It's interesting. I didn't do a lot of reflecting on these types of things when I wrote this, and then I had one of my good friends, Ashley Winstead, the great thriller writer. She lives in Houston. She posted this amazing review on Instagram about it, and she was basically saying like it's because of society and the patriarchy that women are primed to be this way and hardwired to, that we're all allowed to have this desire, but because we're not supposed to, because we're women, we can't even talk about it amongst ourselves, and maybe even we can't even admit it to ourselves. And so anyway, I thought that was so interesting. That doesn't really answer your question, but I feel like Will is, yeah, he's just adept at, reading the room, getting in there. And I think he genuinely, I don't really know what he thinks. People keep asking me, well, who was he really in love with? I think he was in love with Cynthia, but I don't want to do spoilers either. I don't know. This is probably spoiler allowed, right? Since the book's been out so long.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah, cool. And I feel like, Jen was just sort of like easy prey. And once he got her interested, like he wasn't interested anymore. And he was never really interested in Kitty,
Right.
except for that one afternoon. And that was like, haha, I gotcha, So, and I've definitely seen people behave that way, men, that will remain nameless. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. And I'm glad I'm not dating, and I'm glad I'm not like a teenager. And
Right. Yeah, that's definitely something from our generation and older that is kind of ingrained into men and women when they're younger about those kind of gender roles, where now the folks in the younger generation, they don't succumb to those as much.
right, exactly. It's so true. Yeah. I think with social media, everything's so confusing now. I can't imagine being a teenager, but you're right. There's not all that constraints, and probably not even in East Texas anymore. There's been some progression there. So hopefully the youth have it easier.
Yes, that is very interesting. So I noticed that with this novel, it's really tightly plotted. Like you really just kept the story going and going. There wasn't really any kind of speed bumps or any slowdowns, and I can
Thank you.
really admire that, particularly as a writer of literary fiction, where I slow down all the time in my own writing. So when you're planning a book like this, do you spend a lot of preparation beforehand, kind of getting ready, plotting it out, kind of figuring out all those different things to kind of keep it going, or you just go by feel when you're writing a story like this?
Thanks again. That's so great to hear. And I feel like I do a blend of both. I used to call myself a pantser, but that's not really true when I really thought about it. I do have an idea of where I'm going, and I'm always, I will always write like a one-page synopsis of the book. I try to envision what might be like on the cover copy. And that's really from Amanda Ward, because I took, I studied under her, and she sort of drilled that into her students, was if you can have that one page, you can always go back to it. And that way, if you get in the saggy middle, which we all do, and so I usually have an overview, and then I try to do like a 3-act structure where I know what some of the bigger plot points are. And then after that, I just really get down to writing, and I don't do too much outlining. But I might get to chapter 3 or 4, and then I might see like a sequence of the next 5 scenes, or I might see a scene in act 3. So it kind of evolves like that. I have to definitely not work from an outline for the most part. I really like to, get in there and see where it, leads me. The characters lead me, really.
Right. So even, like a lot of thinking about it is still plotting.
Yeah.
So do you find yourself beforehand really kind of thinking about those nuts and bolts of A, B, C, D, and how it kind of talks back to the beginning?
Definitely. Absolutely.
The revelation at the end, I'm not going to say who is speaking in the prologue,
Okay.
but I was definitely surprised to find out who it was.
Great.
And that's always great because, I'm thinking, well, okay, who is it? Cynthia? Is it, Katie? I'm trying to figure out from the voice. And it was very interesting to kind of reveal who it was. When in the writing process did you decide who that person was going to be? Was that something you planned from the beginning, or did that reveal itself later when Will kind of weaseled his way into the neighborhood?
I did know that from the beginning. I knew how that was going to play out in a vague way, but I didn't know actually when I sat down to write the prologue, I thought it was another character. And it was only through the writing of it that I realized, okay, no, it is from her point of view. So
That's awesome.
then I had to go back and sort of adjust the voice a little bit for reasons we won't spoil.
Right.
But
Excellent. So what did you learn about the publication process of this particular book that was kind of new for you that you want to share with the writing community? What was something that you kind of revealed about this one in particular? Was there something that was a good surprise or an interesting kind of turn for this one coming out into the market?
I think, we do I think the industry is sort of geared towards debuts. And even though Bigwoods was my first novel, The Hunting Wives was sort of my bigger debut. And it was I would say there was a lot more noise around that one. And so this release was a little bit quieter. So that was surprising. And it was like, well, okay, but that's how it is, and that was fine. Like we're, trying to build my readership. And then about, I don't know if it was 2 weeks after publication, I can't remember the exact date, I get an email one night from my publicist and he says, May, your book's going to be on the Today Show tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what? And he's like, and you can't tell anyone. I was like, oh, thank you for not telling me a week ago. I mean, I can keep a secret, but it's excruciating. So I was like, and he was like, and it could get canceled. We don't know if a current event pops up or, so just, we're pretty sure it's going to happen. And so that was like such an amazing surprise. And I was like, so grateful to him for getting that. Lauren Jaggers, if you're listening, thank you. And that was really cool. Yeah. So the author John Searles recommended it. And yeah, that was the biggest nice surprise. And I would say, it's publication wise, there was still like a lot of COVID stuff. So I didn't do a proper tour. I mean, I did a Texas tour, but I didn't get on a plane like I'm hoping to this summer for my next one. So it was great though. I mean, I went to, Murder by the Book in Houston and in Terabang in Dallas, and of course Book People here. So yeah, and yeah, I don't know. I wish I had something wise to say. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, and I feel like everything is a surprise every day to me.
Right. I have to agree with what you said about how there's the quieter release, because I don't know about you, but with me, it's like every book that I do, I feel like there needs to be some momentum for something because, writing is so hard and blah, blah, blah. And I've also had periods where some have come out and had kind of greater recognition than others.
Yeah.
And there is kind of a deflating feeling to that. Like the wind comes out of your sails a little bit because I don't know about you, but I always think, well, this book is better than the last one.
Yeah. Yeah.
My hope is that my readers will enjoy this more than the last one.
Yeah.
And there is kind of something like an element of luck and surprise when you release a book out into the world that maybe it'll be bigger, maybe not. And you kind of just have to go with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's a real roller coaster,
Hmm.
and then I'm sure you experience this too, as your book's coming out, you're probably at work on another one, and it can really impact, your mental state.
Hmm.
I mean, that's a hard thing to juggle, I feel.
Right. So what are you working on right now then?
I'm working on another like suspense, and I don't know how much I can say about it, but it's the first one that I've written that is actually set outside of Texas.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of exciting for me. And yeah, and then A Likeable Woman comes out July 11th. I just had to give that a plug. So that's my fourth East Texas thriller.
Okay.
Yeah.
So changing gears, what's the last book that you read that kind of like defied your expectations? Like you went into it thinking, well, maybe I won't like this, or maybe it's something, and then it surprised you in a way that is memorable.
Gosh, that's a great question. I'm not going to say that it defied my expectations because I'm already such a fan of this author, but I got an early read of Eliza Jane Brazer's Girls and Their Horses. And I didn't have like a lot of preconceived notions other than like I really do love her writing. It absolutely completely blew my mind, and I keep it now at my bedside. It's actually I had it printed out, and it is like
Yeah.
it's like my Bible now because she anyway, I did a blurb for it, and I kind of described it as like Dallas meets Big Little Lies, and it's set in the world of horse, like what's it called, like show horse. So, and it's a world I didn't know anything about. So it's set in Southern California in this uber wealthy enclave, and it's girls and their horses. So it's these teenage girls who do like they're being trained to ride their horses for show, for prizes. And it's like 5 or 6 different povs. It was just epic and sprawling, suspenseful, juicy, nasty, toxic female friendships. It was just everything I ever want in a book. And it was so unique and different.
Right.
It's really like it's a thriller, but it's also very soapy and big. So it's a really nice, like, I don't know, I feel like she kind of stretched the genre or blended genres with it, which is exciting. Just yeah, it comes out June 6th. So I have to plug that book. I just saw her post that she got a starred review in Publishers Weekly
Excellent.
today. Not at all surprised. So that book I feel like it's going to be all over the place this summer, and I can't wait.
Awesome. So last question, if you were stuck on a deserted island and you could only have one book in your possession, what would that book be?
Oh my gosh. One.
Yep, just one.
I honestly have to say it would be our mutual friend, Owen Edgerton's Hollow.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent book.
Yeah, isn't it?
Very sad, but also funny.
Exactly. Yeah.
How can you
And
do both of those things at the same time?
I know, I have no idea. It's brilliant.
Yeah, that is an excellent book. All right, so now's the time in the show where we do our lightning round. We took this concept from inside the actor's studio, but it's not theirs. They stole it from Bernard Pivot. He stole it from Marcel Proust. A lot of people have stole this concept. So, Cobb, are you ready for the lightning round?
Let's go.
All right, let's do it. What's your favorite word?
Yellow.
What's your least favorite word?
Sad.
What turns you on?
um I think humor.
That's a good one. What turns you off?
mm, uh um hmm. Let's see, passive aggressiveness.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. What is your idea of happiness?
um a day where I can read books, take as many naps as I want, and like eat all the good food.
Who is your favorite author?
Gosh, favorite author. Favorite crime fiction author is Tana French.
Excellent. If you could be a character from a well-known novel, any novel throughout history, who would that be?
I think maybe Jane Eyre.
Excellent. What profession other than your own would you want to attempt?
Real estate, realtor.
Oh, okay.
Obsessed with Zillow.
What profession would you least want to do?
A math teacher, because I'm terrible at math.
Yeah, me too. I get it. All right, the last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you reach the check-in desk?
I can't believe you made it.
Woo! All right. May Cobb, excellent novel, My Summer Darlings, paperback coming out in April. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Scott. I had a blast.
This has been a presentation of Austin Liti Limits, made possible with help from our good friends at Blue Ink Review, where typing "the end" is just the beginning. Find out more at blueinkreview.com.